Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Get Wealth podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Michael Burnz, real estate investor, broker, lender. Just from the research that I've done on you, it sounds like you're doing a lot, and I'm excited to get into some of those topics because I share a lot of the same interests. You're a lot further ahead than I am, but that's the point in talking to you. So, thanks for coming on the show, and yeah, I'm excited. Thanks.
Yeah, man, glad to be here, and appreciate you reaching out. But dude, like I think that's the one thing everyone sees where people are at, and it's the starting part that's not the sexy part. It's not the easy part. So we were just talking off camera, and you've done however many deals you've got going. So that's just showing up and doing what you're doing is all the right things.
That's all. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And the good thing is the hard stuff and the being in the trenches and doing the stuff that's takes a long time and is difficult or stressful or whatever. I find that kind of fun. So hopefully it just keeps going that way. And yeah, cool. So let's kind of jump into your background a little bit. Can you kind of give just a brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Mike Burnz. I'm based out of Salt Lake City, Utah, 34. So we're flipping houses. I flip about 40 properties a year. And then I've got a mortgage company. I've got a real estate brokerage, and then we've got a 58 unit rental portfolio mix of like multifamily deals and single family stuff. Most of everything's here in the Salt Lake area. We do a little bit of hard money lending and kind of starting to take the money we're making in real estate and investing it into other businesses and cash flow producing assets. Grew up in a small town. I'm from California. My parents had a small business, like a nursery or a garden center. So that was probably the biggest gift I've had growing up in a small town, but also a small family owned business, and just being exposed to all the different pieces that are a part of that. So did sales, got into sales when I was about 19 years old, did inside sales, really flourished at that for a couple of years. And I went out on my own as a broker in the nursery business. So I was doing outside sales essentially as a 1099 sales rep. And then we did our first flip into the end of 2012, beginning of 2013. And it's kind of a quick overview who I am and what we're doing.
Wow, that's crazy because you're doing so much now. So it started out sales, which carries over well to real estate, right? What do you think are like the biggest skills to have? Sales has got to be one of them, right?
Yeah, man, sales, but really sales comes down, like sales is just your ability to communicate and connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like people don't, especially in today's world, people don't want to get hard closed on shit, and the more and more that people do things digitally and not as much face to face, I think people really appreciate the connection, building the rapport, having the relationship, and then really just what is it that you need? And like, here's my solution for that. And I think that's universal, no matter what you're selling, but in real estate or, whether we're trying to help someone buy a home as their agent or list their home as their agent, or I'm sitting down with a seller that wants to sell their property. Someone needs to get a mortgage, whatever it might be. We're just trying to find the answer to their solution. And everything I do is kind of relationship based. So I'm looking to offer value, build a relationship. And I think if you show up in integrity through that way, kind of the process will take care of itself, especially if they're dealing with some guy that's just, used car salesman, all slicked up, just hard closing, not listening to you, just sign, versus you have someone that's trying to build a relationship with you and really communicate with you and listening to what you're saying. I think that person's going to get the business every single time.
Yeah, I think that's a good philosophy, and obviously it's worked for you so far. So that's great. So your sales, and you transition into your first fix and flip. How did you even think about real estate? Was that just something you read about that was a cool thing to do, or where did that go?
Good question. So I was a sophomore or a junior in high school, and my dad had the nursery for like 25 years. So I grew up in that small town, and he sold the business. And when he sold the business, he took that money and he bought a bunch of lots. And this is in like a small town in Southern California. So I think he bought, I don't know, probably 12 or 15 different lots, not initially out the gate, but he bought these lots. And then he went to a guy that I had known my whole life growing up, who was a general contractor and a landscape contractor. And he pretty much said, hey, I bought all these lots. Like, I'd like you to build the house, facilitate building the house. We'll partner on it. I'll front the land and all the money. And this guy basically would just build the house. And then my dad kind of learned that process. So I watched him do that from the time I was, probably sophomore, junior year through just after graduating high school. I moved out. So for a couple of years, I was watching him build these houses. And this was like 2004, 2005, 2006, like right when shit was, going really well. And I saw him make a ton of money doing that. So that's what planted the seed of real estate. But when you're 18, it just doesn't, like how I remember buying a book, everything you need to know to be a realtor, and reading it when I was like 18. It just didn't seem real at the time that I could be doing that. So fast forward, when I was doing outside sales, I'd moved to Utah. My brother asked me, hey, do you want to go to this Dean Graziosi real estate seminar this weekend? It's free. Are you going to be in town? So we went to that, signed up for it. And then it took us a year and 94 offers before we got our first deal. And for anyone that's new, I'll say that again. It took us 1 year and 94 offers before we got a deal accepted. So, like, don't think it's going to happen like that. It can, and it does, but there was a process to it. So we started going, we went to that first seminar, and then we started going to the local RIAs, the real estate investing groups. There was like 3 of them in the Salt Lake area, going to seminars, reading books, and just really diving in and saying, hey, this is what we want to do. And did that first. We made 24 grand on that first flip. We lost 50 grand on our second flip.
Oh no.
And never looked back.
That's crazy. And so then it's just, okay, so you started out doing flips that way. Yeah, that's kind of the rude awakening you get when you actually start trying to do the business, is that there's a lot of, no's and getting hung up on, and people that don't want to hear you because you're a scammer when you're just trying to find someone that you can help. That's usually how it goes. It's the rare cases is when there's that, random person who just doesn't know the value of their home and has whatever problem and just wants to get rid of it. Those are out there, but people get those after doing so many offers, like you said, 94. That's crazy. So you're probably still making that many offers and reaching that many people. You're just doing it at a higher level. Is that kind of where you're at now?
Yeah, we write a lot of offers now, and a lot of my deal flow now is coming from like agents we get a lot of deals from agents, bring us deals, or we just get referrals from people that know what we do. We'll buy wholesale deals. We buy some stuff off the MLS. We've got some marketing that's going, so kind of all over the place, but definitely not writing the extent of offers that I was back then. But when we were first starting, were super low, and you start learning how to gauge repairs, and you start learning how to actually run a formula, like, okay, ARV's here, and then work your numbers backwards. So it was a lot of that was just a learning process.
Mm-hmm.
But 2, like, that's just getting a deal. You have like all the effort to get a deal, and that's, everyone says you make your money when you buy, which is true, but you keep your money when you execute on a deal. So you kind of got like the buying part, the execute part, and then hopefully when you go to sell it, you were right on your ARV, and the market's the same or better. But yeah, man, we probably are putting out maybe 20 offers a week on stuff, but a lot of our stuff just comes in at this point. So, and that's going to be relationships and networking, being super involved with the RIAs in town, and just, I was on another podcast, and that's how I ended up meeting you today for the first time. You hit me up because you saw me just out there. So I really try to just make myself out in the marketplace of saying, hey, this is who I am and what I'm doing. And over time, that just has kind of brings deals in, brings investors in. It just creates opportunity.
Yeah, which is, that's the right way. That's, I don't know, it makes sense. You got to put in the difficult work and show that you know what you're doing. And then once you start having some success, then people want to give you their business or want to reach out to you because they know what you're about and they know that you've executed. If you're just, someone who finds out about real estate and thinks they want to do a fix and flip, no one's going to come to you and bring you deals or give you the opportunities that someone who has actually done it for a year and knows the difficulties and has, had things screw up, like the deal where you lost $50,000. You probably learn quite a bit from doing that, whereas earlier on you don't.
Yeah, I've learned way more from my losses than my wins, for sure. I mean, some of the biggest losses or challenges that I've had in life and business, like during the moment, it sucks. But when you go through it and you get on the other side of that, looking back, that's really when our character is shaped. And that's when your confidence, when you go through a situation like losing 50 grand on a deal and you get through, we had the hard money, like, so we had issues with the contractors, and then we had a 6-month hard money loan and we were past the 6 months. So then you're renegotiating every single month with the hard money lender, trying to get an extension on the hard money and just having that whole experience. And then, having one showing a week because the market was slow, and then just having to go through the mental process of reducing your price by $25,000 when you're already losing money. So when you go through these constant things and then you get on the other side of it and it's like, oh, I'm still fucking alive. I made it through that. It increases, for me, it increased my confidence with myself, because like my mental capacity to deal with struggle, like I just got through that, and I'm still here. I'm still in the game. I'm still doing it. And for me, that's just been my building blocks. So the more challenges and hard times I've had, it's just allowed me to develop character and confidence with myself.
That's so awesome. Yeah. Can we kind of dissect that deal a little bit? Because I mean, that's kind of the purpose of this podcast, is just to learn as much as possible. So what are the things that you think you did right starting out? Like, okay, I guess that's your second one, but yeah, so the things going into it that worked and still work, and then looking back thinking, okay, I would have done this differently. What would you say those are?
Specifically with this second deal that we did?
Yeah, sure.
I would have, well, there's me now and then me then. Like if I could go back to me then, I still would have done it, because of, it was a catapulting situation, but I had no business doing the deal at all. So it's my second flip. At the time, this house was an ARV of like 525, which today in Salt Lake, that house is probably a $1 to $1.2 million home.
Wow.
So like, that's not a flip that anyone should be doing for their second deal. Our rehab on that was about 80 grand. And again, back in 2013, costs have doubled since then on stuff. So we're talking probably $120,000 rehab at least for my second deal. So I shouldn't have done the deal in general. But I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone sitting there telling me like, hey man, like don't do this deal, or get a partner. I could have brought in a partner that was a little more experienced. So that's that. But other things on this, like with this house, that you just don't know until you start doing deals and you get experience. But so this house was on a cul-de-sac, and it sat kind of cockeyed on its lot. So you had this cul-de-sac, but the way the house sat on the lot, it just kind of looked funky. So today, I would look at that and immediately I would know, in this price point, that's, people aren't going to like that. Another thing is, this just had a detached 1-car garage, which for that price point, a 1-car garage, people, if they're buying $1 million+ home, they probably have nice vehicles. It snows in Utah a lot. They probably want to have their car in a garage. And then the other thing is, it had this long ass driveway, and then the garage was on the back of it. So you couldn't have 2 cars side by side. So like, you could have 1 car in the garage, but everything would be stacked behind. You just have a single file of cars in the driveway, which again is not very convenient. So, and then lastly, the neighbor on the other side of the cul-de-sac, that house was just distressed, dilapidated. No one should have been living in it. Like it needed to be a tear down house. So I got this home that I'm doing for 525,000 to be $1 million now. And I've got, it looks weird on the lot. I've got a shitty driveway situation, a 1-car garage, and the neighbor looks like shit. Like everything would have been screaming like, don't do this deal. Right. But I didn't get it. Another thing, as far as like, even if I were to go back today and do that same deal, what I would have done differently with the remodel is, if I would have blown out 1 wall, maybe 2 walls, and really understanding how important layouts are, I could have blown out 1.5 walls, and I guarantee you I wouldn't have lost money on that deal. We probably would have made some money had I just had the vision to know and understand like the layout would work better if I just took this wall out. I'm real confident we would have made money on that deal, even though I probably wouldn't do it in the first place. So just things like that, but you can't read that in a book. You're not going to learn that at a seminar. There's so much shit with flipping houses that you're just going to learn like hands-on doing, thinking that you're gonna, another thing is just thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna go in and we're gonna get this remodel done in 2.5, 3 months. We'll list the property for sale. It'll probably take a month to sell and we'll close it in a month. So you think 6 months of hard money is cool. And I'm not planning on being in a deal for longer than 6 months. And then it's like, well, shit, what happens if we go past 6 months? Oh, what's an extension fee on a hard money loan? I had no idea. So there's so much shit that was costly that I learned just by doing the deal. So kind of break it down a little bit for you there. And then another thing too, one other thing I would add is depending on the market that you're in, but really understanding pricing property where you should price it initially with the market instead of starting high. And then also knowing when to drop your price. We waited way too long. Like one, we listed it too high. And secondly, like we waited too long to do price reductions, and the price reductions we did do, they weren't enough to catch attention in that price point. And that's just, again, all stuff that you're going to kind of learn with experience and going through it. So the 50,000 that we lost in cash money is, probably made me hundreds of thousands moving forward, since then, either on deals that I didn't do or money that we made because of those lessons.
Yeah, that's so cool. And it's also one of those things where the reason that you're able to do real estate at a high level now is because you're willing to pull the trigger and just take action, especially early on. Like you were saying, you can mitigate some of those things with a mentor or partners or things like that. But the key thing you have to have there in order to make it or to do something is to do something. And that's just part of the process of screwing up. And, it was like one of those unavoidable obstacles that you had to go through. And so it's kind of one of those things, like just doing the first deal. Like in a fix and flip, there's so many components to it that you don't even think about. Like you're saying, talking with hard money lenders and then listing it on the market. When you first get into real estate, you understand, okay, find a deal, fix it up and sell it, and then I make the room there. But there's all these other pieces.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I'm sure you've been able to figure out now what it's like. Do you usually buy like cookie cutter deals that are going to be out of home runs, or are you I don't know, are you kind of going for a special type of flip, or what does it look like now?
No, man, we do deals of all sizes, but one thing that you just said that I want to touch on real quick, and then we'll talk about deals, is you got to get started. And I speak at our local RIAs quite a bit and host a skills training for one of them. And I have a lot of people come to me with the getting started thing. And so many people are worried about their business card and their website and setting up their LLC and basically all this shit other than going and doing the work and getting a deal done. Like none of that matters. So those are just little busy task things that people do to tell themselves that like, oh, I'm doing this, but like, you're not doing the real work. So do the real work and go like get out there trying to find a deal. I think that's really important to touch on. But as far as the deals that we do now, I'll do anything within an hour of where we're at, like flip wise. We've got some out of state stuff, but that's like rental portfolio stuff. But for the flips, anything within an hour, I won't do anything that won't make, it's got to be at least $20,000 money in there on an entry level deal where we're not, going to be putting $60,000 into it, just a real paint and carpet kind of cosmetic type of deal. I don't really have a price point as long as the numbers work. Like right now I've got stuff that's selling for $325 and I've got stuff that's selling for like $975 and everything in between. So I don't really have like certain criterias as long as the numbers work. I've got my formula. We can go over that if you'd like, that I use, but I do have some things that are hard nosed for me. So like a shitty layout, if it's got a bad layout, and this is because of that second house that we have, like if it's a bad layout and it's a layout that we can't work with, like moving walls or doing whatever, then I won't touch it. Busy roads, like really busy roads, if you got double yellows on each side, we're probably not going to do that deal. If you've got neighbors that are absolutely like horrendous, that's something that has been a costly thing that I've learned as well. So those are some of the things that I won't do. Or if we do a special exception, like we've got to have a large spread in there to make up the difference, because it's hard to tell how much value a train track right next to the master bedroom is going to make or not. And so,
Right.
but and then if you want, I can go over kind of how I underwrite deals.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, because I mean, the standard one, I think there's one like 70% repairs in ARV, but I always find it's like you were saying, there's so many different things. Like I haven't even thought about the layout and the busy road in the neighborhood before when I'm trying to analyze a deal. So that's really good if you can provide that. Yeah.
Well, and other stuff too, like on busy roads, like, so how do you calculate a pricing adjustment for like you're on a super busy road, or you've got, something weird going on. So if I am going to entertain a deal like this is just kind of me putting that out there. I'll take like a 10% reduction in price for something weird like that. If you're like on a real busy street, or you got a train track in your backyard or in front of you, or we flipped the house and like literally the freeway was right here, and there was a sound wall, there was a street in our house, so it was a good deal. We did it, but I put a 10% adjustment in the price for that freeway, because you just don't know, and that's going to come down to buyer preference, right? Some people look at it, other people it's just a hard no for them.
Yeah.
And garages too is another thing. Like if I'm in a median home, like if I'm 500 grand or above, I need at least a 1-car garage, because I know people are going to probably be making money, and have decent vehicle. They're just going to have a different standard of living. So that's another thing. But as far as my formula goes, I go different than a lot of people do the 70%, 60% ARV, less rehab and stuff. I used to do that, but I've really, because the market where we're at is so competitive, I've really tightened down. I've really tried to get my numbers dialed in. So I'll start at ARV after repair value, and then I take 6% straight off the top of the ARV. And that 6% for me is going to be commissions for a buyer's agent. I'm a realtor, so we don't have to pay anything on the listing side, but it's going to be commissions for a buyer's agent. It's going to be closing costs when I sell, closing costs when I buy, and that'll cover like insurances and stuff while we have the property. Prior to the market being where it is now, when we used to have to pay some closing costs for buyers and it wasn't quite a seller market, I would take 8% off the top and leave an extra couple percentage in there, because most of the time buyers are going to ask you to pay for their closing costs. So it used to be 8%. Now I take 6% straight off the top, and then I'm going to back out my rehab off of that number. And then I'm going to take out 6 months of hard money cost. So I pay 12% interest on my hard money. So I'll just take 6% of the, whatever the purchase price is for hard money. And then that's essentially going to put you where your break even is at. Ideally, when I'm underwriting a deal, you want to make 10% of the ARV. In my market in Salt Lake, if you sell a $600,000 house and you think you're going to make 60 grand in profit, that's probably not realistic. So you really just need to set up like, what's your criteria for the profit you need on that deal. So I'll go ARV minus 6%, minus rehab, minus 6 months of hard money costs, and that's my break even number. And then depending on what the ARV is of the house, how much rehab we're putting into it, then I'll decide what kind of spread that I need to go into that deal making. If that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it's really catered to you, right?
Yeah, so like I just bought a house on Friday that is up in Ogden, and that's kind of not a rough area, but it's more of an entry level area, and it's the ARV is 260 to 270. If I flip it, I'll make 15 to 20 grand, which is on the low side, but I'm okay with that because it's going to be an easy deal. It's a lower ARV. We'll probably end up selling it for more than I think. So that's about I'm willing to do that. But if I'm, say I'm looking at a house, another one that we just closed, we bought it today, actually, the ARV on that is 400 to 420. And I know I'm probably going to put 60 into it. Like on that house, I need to make at least 30 grand for it to make sense, for the time and effort and everything that's going to happen on that project. And it'll probably take us 4 months, from the time we close on it to selling it on the back end. So you just got to set up what your investing criteria is. But also, if you're borrowing money from hard money guys, they're going to want to see that you got some spread in the deal. That way they're going to be comfortable lending on it. So there's, you know, moving pieces with how much you need to make per deal. But for me, it's a minimum of 20 grand.
Mm. Yeah. Has it always been that?
No, dude, like, no. You know, like a couple of years ago, you know, as you're going, you want to do deals, like I'd flip houses that had like $12,000 spreads in them, $15,000 spreads in them. And I won't do that anymore just because I don't need to, you know, like that I needed deals bad then, and now I don't need them quite as much. So like I've been able to expand my criteria a little bit and not do those super skinny deals. But you know, when you're getting going, you kind of got to do what you got to do. But while we're talking about spreads and underwriting deals, the most important thing and one of the most costly things that I've done is if you give me a deal, I can make it look like a deal on paper. Like it's really easy to bullshit your numbers. And when you're even to today, like I'd have lost 10 grand on a deal that we did over the summer because I did exactly what I tell people not to do. I'm like, I could probably sell it for 350. I could probably sell it for 345, 350, but really the number was 335. And I thought the rehab was going to be 35, and I was like, I could probably get it done for 30. Well, I ended up spending 40 on the rehab because some shit came up, and we ended up selling it for 330. So by just going a little aggressive and ambitious on my ARV high and then thinking I could get it done for a little less on the rehab, well, now there goes my profit. So we lost 10 grand on it, and I've done, you know, several hundred flips, and I'm still making mistakes like that. So you got to be honest with yourself on the numbers. Don't overshoot your, like, don't, especially in an appreciating market like we have right now. A lot of people are buying deals because you buy a house, and then when you fix it up and you go to sell it, you thought you'd sell it for 400, but you end up getting 425 or 430, which is awesome. But you need to have that cherry on top money. And I think a lot of people will underwrite deals assuming that appreciation is going to continue. So it's not a deal today, but when we go to sell it in 3 or 4 months, the market's going to have gone up, and then there'll be some spread in it. Super dangerous to do. So just really being realistic with what is the ARV today, and doing the same thing with your repair money. Like, don't bullshit yourself and think like I've gone over budget 100 times to come in under budget one time. So that would be my biggest, one of the biggest things I couldn't stress enough. And I've lost hundreds of thousands doing what I just told you.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. It's so tempting, right? Because you want to do the deal. Like you want to just pull the trigger. You want to try to get something done, but it's especially an appreciating market because it's been happening and you hear all these stories. Oh, I sold it like 50K more than asking. But I mean, that's what'll get you.
Yeah. And if, you know, even if the market levels out or takes a slow dip on it, you've got a problem. And then if the market slows down and now you're not selling a home in 2 weeks like you were, now it takes 45 days or 60 days, and then you're throwing the hard money piece in there, like you can go into the red really quick, really fast.
Yeah. So there's two things I want to touch on because I always forget to kind of step back and explain some things for people that are just tuning in and don't know what terms are, like hard money. So I want to get to how you work with hard money. And then also I want to go into kind of how you're estimating your repair costs, because I know there's some kind of ballpark ways. If it's this square footage and it's this square footage and you have this much work, that's about this price, and there's some ways to kind of get in the ballpark. Is that what you do when you're making an offer, or are you analyzing deals, and what's your process for figuring out the rehab?
So rehab, I run rehab based on square footage, a combination of things, but we're, you know, like right now I've got 14 deals going. Like I said, we flip about 40 a year. So I have a pretty good pulse on like what stuff's costing me. And I don't really break it down. Like I used to break it down, like the house is 2,000 square feet and I'm paying $2 a foot for paint, and I would line item it out like that. I don't really do that now.
Yeah.
Now I'll kind of like walk a house and it feels like 45,000, right? But what I'll do if I don't see a property, or what I'm always going to do, is I'll take the square footage and I go at $30 a foot, and that's going to get me everything cosmetic. So if I have to do a roof, I'll add it on top of that. Or if I have to do an HVAC and an AC, I'll add it on top of that. Or if I've got to do major plumbing or major electrical, I'll add it on top of that. Or if I've got, you know, I need to put a sprinkler and sod system, you know, I'll put that on top of that. But $30 a foot should get me a full cosmetic rehab on a house. That's going to be paint, flooring, kitchens, bathrooms, windows, base and case. If I have a lot of windows, it might be a little more than that. But dude, just like a year and a half ago, I was running it at 20 bucks a foot. So like things, so I started noticing I was blowing my budget. So then I went to 25 and now I'm underwriting them at 30. If it's a higher end home, I'll underwrite it at 35 bucks a foot. So I'll do that math though, too, right? There's a little bit of a checks and balance system, but a lot of it is just really feel. Like I just go off of feel. I kind of know, my different guys, like some guys are a little bit more expensive. Some of my guys are a little cheaper. So it depends on the type of house, but I'll run it, it's 3,000 square feet, 30 bucks a foot. That's 90 grand. And then does that feel like it's a $90,000 rehab? And then I just kind of make adjustments from there.
That's really good. Cool. So for someone starting out who thinks that they just gotta save for 15 years until they have enough money in their bank account to go buy a deal and fund the rehab, is that the only option or are there more?
No, definitely not the only option. Especially in the fix and flip, you're not getting a mortgage. Because number one, you're buying a property that's probably in rough condition and maybe it qualifies for a conventional loan. But secondly, if you're buying a distressed property, you're getting at a discount. Part of the benefit that you're adding as the buyer is you're paying cash and you're closing quick and you're not having contingencies or any of that bullshit. So you're not really going to be buying a flip with traditional mortgage products. So you're going to be buying them with hard money loans or a private money loan. So what a hard money loan is that's basically people who, that's what they do. They lend money on real estate deals. So they're going to act just like a normal bank would. You're going to have a mortgage note on it. They're going to secure a lien against the property. And they're going to lend on this property because you're buying it at a deep discount. But because you're not getting qualified and because they're not looking at your credit and because they're lending on the deal, and that's what they do for a business, you're going to pay high interest. So like here in Utah, typical hard money points or hard money terms are 2 points and 12% interest. And if you don't know what a point is basically 1% of the loan amount. So if you borrow $100,000, a point would be $1,000. So 2 points and 12% is kind of what people charge for hard money out here. And then depending on the deal is going to depend on how much, money they're going to want to lend you. Some guys go off of what's the ARV, which is the after repair value. So that's the value when you sell the home. They'll only do a certain percentage of that. Some guys will lend you 100% of the purchase price, or 85% of the purchase price that you're buying it at. And then you got to figure out how you're going to do, you got to cover the rehab on your own. So there's a lot of different, way people out there and they all have different lending criteria just depending what their risk tolerance is, but that's what hard money is. And it's pretty much, unless you're using your own cash, which takes a while, like hard money is pretty much the backbone of real estate deals. Like that's how people are funding their deals. And then you'll hear the term private money, which is basically hard money too, but the difference is a hard money lender, that's probably what they do. They're a hard money lender. They've got, they've either raised a bunch of capital or they've got a bunch of their own money and they're doing the loans as a business. That's what they do. Private money is going to be someone that's more like a private investor. So they're, they have either they're retired or they've got a different, like it's a dentist or a doctor or an attorney or a retired guy, and they've got just money that they'll lend you on your deal. And what's nice about private money is usually you're going to get better terms. So like my private money lenders, I'm paying 10% or 12% with no points, and they'll fully fund the whole purchase price versus hard money is 2 or 3 points and 12. And they only want to give you 85 to 90% of the purchase price. Plus you got to come up with the difference to fund the deal, but then you got to come up with your rehab money too. So we use, go ahead.
I was going to ask if you're using private money to fund the rest of the rehab, but you were about to say something as well. So
yeah, so I've always funded the rehab on my deals myself. So I was just rolling money from the next deal. Tons of credit cards. I maximize Home Depot and Lowe's credit cards to really get started, and then I've got credit lines. But when I was first getting going, dude, if I could get a credit card for $2,000, like I was filling that application out. So the way we funded our first deal is I met a guy at one of the RIAs, and he had just sold his business. And he was just kind of like sitting in the corner at one of the meetings. I went up and talked to him, real friendly, building a relationship like I talked about early on. And he told me, yeah, I just sold my business. I want to start lending money on deals. I don't really want to have rentals. I don't want to flip them, but I've got cash, and I think I want to be a hard money lender. So that's how I found him. And I used him probably for the first 2 years of all my deals, but I'd pay him 2 or 3 points and 12%, and he would fully fund the deal. And then I had about like 20 grand saved up, just life savings, and was doing some stock trading and shit before I got into real estate. So I sold all of that and then got Home Depot credit cards. And that's how we paid for our first rehab. So then we sold that house. I got all that money back plus the 24,000 that we made, and kind of like just kept rolling it. So now I've got private money guys that fund most of my stuff. I still fund the majority of the rehab, and then we'll probably own 4 or 5 houses at a time just on our own cash. And then I've got HELOCs on my personal home. I've got HELOCs on my rental properties. I've got business credit lines. So it's just over the last 10 years, I've built up my access to credit, and then just the cash that we have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it just shows what it can really turn into. If you start small and just do what it takes, you can build so much leverage where you can snowball it. It'll just keep building and building.
Yeah, but a lot of people think, you need money, or you need to qualify for a bank loan to get going, and that's not true at all. Like I just kind of told you how we got going on our first deal. Learning seller finance is I bought my first 4 rental properties on seller finance. So seller financing is where the seller finances to you. They leave their loan in place, or they own the house free and clear, and they just act as the bank. So you give them whatever down payment you can negotiate, and then you just make a monthly payment. And if you put a renter in there, they're making that payment for you. And now you control an asset without having to get a bank loan, without having to have a huge down payment. So there's really just learning these different tools to get going, but you don't have to have a bunch of money to get into the game, whether you're flipping or doing buy and hold or wholesale or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities out there. Like you were saying, I think that's probably what I find the most interesting. I haven't done a creative deal yet, but that's really what I'm pushing for. I've done a few wholesale deals, and sometimes there just can only be a wholesale deal. Not everyone's going to be open to doing a creative deal, but sometimes you come across them. And if you can, I mean, you can almost get free houses if you're doing deals like that.
Yeah, the market's crazy right now, but dude, I'll tell you about the first couple seller finance deals we did. So it was probably 2014 or 15. The first seller finance rental property, my brother and I bought it together. It was a twin home on the west side of town, and we bought it from a wholesaler. So this lady, she just wanted out. Her house it needed a little bit of repair. It wasn't really a retail ready house. And so the wholesaler kind of set up the terms of seller financing. But dude, we put down $8,000, and that was like $5,000 for 4 or 5 grand for the wholesaler, plus 3 or 4 grand for this lady to have enough money to get a new place and move. She ended up moving to Montana. And we took title to the home. So we owned the property, we were on title, and we just made her payment straight to Bank of America. It was $858 and whatever cents. And we put a renter in there at $1,300, and then we increased it to $1,400. Then we increased it to $1,500. And we probably put like 4 grand into it, like painting it and just some new carpet, and touched it up. So we were into this rental property, 8,000 down, plus say another 4,000 in rehab. So we're into it for 12 grand. That's way less than 25% on a normal rental property loan, right? And then it was cash flowing. At one point, it was cash flowing probably like $400 a month, $450 a month. And then we held that thing, and then we actually sold it a few months ago, and we bought it for like 140. We ended up selling it for like 350 grand. So we made, I don't know, $200,000 spread on that. We rehabbed it, once the tenant was out, we fixed it up and probably put like 40 or 50 grand into it. But that $12,000 just down, we cash flowed for 6 years, had the depreciation, all that, and then we sold it for the $200,000 profit 6 years later. So you don't have to have money. I have another condo that I still own to right now that's a rental, and the lady had it listed. She had just got divorced. She even had a realtor. It was listed on the MLS. but she was basically upside down about $5,000 in it. So it was advertised as seller finance. I went and met with them, and basically she just wanted out, like, but she couldn't sell it because she couldn't pay commissions and stuff. It would have been a short sale situation. So I gave her realtor like $4,500 for his commission, and she walked away. So I literally picked up this condo for $4,500 down. It was like an FHA loan at 3.25%. She had paid it down for 3 years. I took title. I moved into it actually. And right now I have it as a rental. The payment, FHA mortgage insurance just dropped off. So the payment's like $748 a month. I have it rented at $1,250. And I paid I think 145 for it. And it's probably worth 260, 270 right now. So like, in this
Crazy.
market, it's a little different because this, it's more of a seller's market, but when you can learn these creative ways to do shit, like you don't have to have money to buy deals is the point that I'm making. So I just it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually give an example,
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think people don't really understand the amount of ways that you can do a deal. It's not always just cash. A lot of times there's more opportunity to do a creative deal than there is to just offer someone 60 cents on the dollar when they don't really want to, lose money on the deal. So
yeah, and when you understand like these different ways to structure deals too, and you can, obviously we know all the benefits of us as a buyer, but when you can explain to the seller why it's beneficial to them, then you're creating a win-win situation. And that's how you get deals done.
Yeah. So with real estate, there's just so many ways to go and so many things you can do. And like you just explained, you can do it really starting from zero. You can go buy deals and get started in real estate. If you were to know everything you know right now, actually no, like say you're just starting out and you really want to just put your nose down and work as hard as possible. How long do you think it takes to get to a spot where, you can replace maybe a 9-to-5 job?
Kind of a loaded question, bro.
Yeah.
I think I definitely took the hard route. It took a year and 94 offers and all of that. But I think if you were to be serious about it, you were to be writing offers daily and really, or this is what I would do. I'll take that back. What I would do starting over again is a lot of what I did. I just would have done things a little differently, but immediately, I would quit watching TV. I'd quit listening to the radio. I quit any of that shit. And I would only listen to sales books, and I would only listen to real estate podcasts or sales podcasts. So I'd replace all of that. And then I would go find the local RIA, Real Estate Investor Association groups that are in your town. And I'd go join all of them. There's probably at least one, maybe a couple. Like if you're in Phoenix, like you are, Salt Lake, where I'm at, there's 3 of them. And they're all going to have monthly meetings, but then the monthly night meetings, but then they're also going to have lunch meetings going on too. Some of them are going to be putting on seminars and different shit. I'd go join all of those. And then I'd look for any other real estate meetup groups that are in your area as well. And I would go join and plug into all of that, because now you're going to be in an environment where what you want to do is actually happening. Like if you go to a RIA or a real estate meetup, there's going to be the people there are people who are either doing real estate or want to be doing real estate. So you're going to start getting around it. And then when you're around it and you're seeing it happen, then it becomes more real. Like, oh, like a lot of people are flipping houses. I can do this shit too. And then I would find someone who's doing deals and come to them. Don't do the, hey, can I pick your brain and take you to lunch? People don't want to hear that shit, but hey, I'm new. This is what I'm doing. I'm really excited about it. Like, is there some time like you're going to be at a project that I could maybe come meet you at it, maybe do some construction cleanup? Is there any value I could offer you? I'd really just love to see some hands-on stuff, like a walk a property or whatever. And I would start doing that and finding the guys that are doing deals and going and actually like walking deals. So then you can see, oh, this is what a flip looks like when it's demoed. Why did you do that? Why are you doing this? How much do you think this is going to cost? Where did you find the deal? So now you're getting like case scenarios, like of what's actually happening, and just immersing yourself in that. And then get out there and start writing offers, call for sale by owners, call for rent by owners. If you're driving for dollars and you see a house that looks like shit, pull over. Me and my brother made $50,000 our first year in real estate doing exactly what I'm telling you right now. We're driving down the road. You see an ugly house. I had like a stick it I had like a Post-it thing that was this big that I always had in my car, and it was bright orange, and we had a bright pink one. And I'd write on there, I want to buy this house. We pay cash as is, and my name and my number. And me and my brother, we wholesaled 3 homes doing that. 2 of them for 20 grand and 1 of them for 10 grand. Didn't cost anything other than some gas driving around, a Post-it, and some fucking balls doing the work. Like, and that's the thing. Like, if you're doing all of that and you're doing the work, that deal is going to happen. Like, it's just going to. So that's what I would do to get started. And we did a lot of that, but I wasn't aggressive enough as I could have been with finding a mentor and writing offers and being not just sending bullshit offers, but really trying to understand how the numbers work.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, I think there's so much you can get into it just as far as like learning this strategy or figuring out how to run the numbers on this. But really what it comes down to is what you're saying is just doing something. And I think that's the biggest hurdle for people, is their mind is either just stuck in this way they were raised, or what do you think that is? Why don't people just go out and do the work?
I think that's the biggest challenge with everyone, is where you are and where you want to be, and how that gap of like the how and how do you get there. And you just gotta, you know, you gotta win each day. Like, okay, today I'm gonna call 10 for sell by owners. Today I'm gonna go drive a neighborhood. I'm gonna leave at least 10 notes on homes that are vacant or whatever, and like doing the work consistently over time. And I'm a big spiritual guy. I'm a real big energy guy. I'm into law of attraction, all of that stuff. I know it's real for sure because I'm a living proof of it, and it shows up and works for me every day. But I'm a firm believer, if you're crystal clear on your goal, you're writing your goal down every single day. I want to flip a house. I want to wholesale a house. I want to buy a rental property on seller finance. And you're committed to that every single day, and you're writing it down. I want to do this every single day. And then you're actually taking actions, and you're going to the RIA meetings, and you're trying to find a mentor, and you're reading books, you're listening to audio podcasts, you're getting better at sales skills. You're like for real doing it, and you really want to do it. Energetically, it is impossible for you to be all in doing all of that stuff and it not happen for you.
Yeah.
And that's so I'll tell you our first deal, like this is a prime example. Like that first flip that we did, I told you that guy Gary that sold his business, right?
Yeah.
So my brother and I met him. He lives 3 hours south of where we're at, so he drove up for this. So I had followed up with him later that week, and I had been coming to these meetings for like a year and networking and meeting people and building contacts along the way. And so we had a meeting scheduled with him for a Saturday afternoon to do lunch. Well, that Friday, I got a call at 8 o'clock at night from a wholesaler, and we had never done a deal yet. I got a call from a wholesaler at 8 o'clock at night. He's like, "Hey man, I met you at SLRIA, the Salt Lake RIA group. I got this deal. Are you interested in it?" And yeah, absolutely, I'm interested in it. Okay, well, the buyer bailed. Can you come check it out tomorrow? So I went and checked it out with him the following day. And I met him at like 10 a.m., walked the property with him. And I didn't know anything about anything. Like I took this guy's word for everything, like the ARV, what the rehab was going to be. He had a quote from a contractor, took his word on all of it. When I'm sitting there with the wholesaler, he's like, "Hey dude, but here's the deal. It has to close on Monday. And this is Saturday. So like not even a business day. I've never done a deal ever." And I'm like, okay, thinking there's no way, right? So left it. I said, "I'll follow up with you," acting like I'm going to make this happen. There's in my mind, I'm like, today's Saturday, that's Monday. So me and my brother go to this meeting that was already scheduled with this guy, Gary, had been scheduled for like a week. Me and my brother go to the lunch meeting, sit down with Gary and his wife. He's never done a hard money loan. He's never done a deal, just sold his business. We have lunch, and we literally finished lunch and we're getting up from lunch, and I didn't tell him about the deal. And it was just this like, it's now or never. Like, so we have a deal. Like as we're shaking hands leaving, we're not even sitting down anymore, paid the bill and everything. And he looks at me like, "Why would you wait? Like, what do you mean you have a deal?" I'm like, "We have a deal. I looked at it today. Do you want to hear about it?" And he's like, "Yeah." So we sit back down after you're paying the bill and everything, dude. And he's like, "Well, tell me about the deal." So I told him all the shit the wholesaler told me. And I said, "But here's the deal. It has to close on Monday." And he's just like, he's looking at me like, this guy's for real right now. So anyways, he's like, "All right, well, let us talk it over and we'll call you guys back, you know, and we're leaving. I'm like, I fucked that one up. There's, you know, and he literally called me like an hour and a half, 2 hours later. And he said, hey, Michael, we talked about it and we're going to take a chance on you and your brother. We'll fund the deal on Monday. I have goosebumps talking about it. So
Me too, man.
if that's not law of attraction and energy, I don't know what is. And we closed that deal on Monday, dude. He funded it on Monday, less than a business day. And now fast forward, you know, hundreds of deals later, I could pull that off today, but it would still maybe be multiple phone calls. Like, you know, so that's literally how we did our first deal right there. And it's because we had been showing up. We'd been writing the offers. We had been going to the stuff. I met the guy. I was networking. I followed up with him and said, hey, when you're in town, I'd love to meet with you and have lunch with you. And I met the wholesaler because I was there. I was showing up. I was networking. So the dude called me with a deal. So like when you're in the mix and you're putting yourself in an environment where what you want to do is happening, there's no way it's not going to not happen for you if you keep showing up and you keep showing up and you keep showing up and everything is aligned with what it is you say you want to do.
Yeah, that's really good, man. I think that's a great way to kind of close this is, you know, just the simple fact of just doing the work and showing up every single day. That's a crazy story, man. I hope everyone out there can find something like that where they're so devoted to it and it just comes together. So
people want to help you, man. Like people who are doing well and they're, you know, like people want to help people and it's just asking, you know, so show up. Like the guy that you see and who's obviously flipping a lot of houses. I can promise you, if you come up to him with the right humble approach, like, hey, I'm new, I'm getting going, I'm coming to these meetings, I'm really trying to learn this. Like, would it be cool if I ever come checked out a property or walked a property with you? Like, I guarantee you 9 out of 10 times that person's gonna like literally open arms. Yeah, absolutely, man. How can I help you? And that's how you find friends and mentors and come from, you know, if that's your come from. But if you roll up like, hey, can I take you to lunch and pick your brain? Like, do you see the difference in the approach? Like, if you approach someone the way that I just 9 out of 10 times they're going to say absolutely. And that's how you're going to find a mentor that's going to help you. And if they're really someone that's successful in doing it, they're going to want to see you do a deal, right? Because at one point they were in that position. So anytime someone approaches me, I go out of my way to try and help them because people did that for me. And it's just the way that things should go. So that would be my closing piece of advice.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on the Get Wealth podcast. I think you provided an extreme amount of value just from the very nitty gritty details of how to do something to the big picture of just really what it takes and overall mindset, which is really what I think most people need. So yeah, appreciate you coming on. Is there anywhere people find you, Instagram, websites, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm real active on social media, you know, just trying to provide valuable content like today. So on Instagram, I'm at michael.burnz, Burnz. On Facebook, I'm Mr. Michael Burnz. And then my podcast just dropped too, Freedom Lifestyle Experience. So there'll be episodes coming every week on that, talking about lifestyle stuff. So not just business and real estate, but just the whole, everything that encumbers lifestyle. So hit me up. Like I said, I'm here to provide value and anything that I can do to help. Feel free to reach out.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Michael Burnz, get wealthy. Or Burnz, Michael Burnz.